music by Into Oblivion. Check them out on linktree.com. Hey everyone, welcome to the Whosoever Group podcast. I'm your host, the Happy Crow, and the slow one to answer is
Storm.
See, I figured I had him off on this one. So, what's today's topic about? We're going to talk about who is God. So, now when we talk about who is God, this is going to be a little bit different. So, let's lay one ground rule from the start. The number one ground rule is, let's get our ideas of who God is and our preconceived notions out and throw them out the window, because we're not worried about what we think or how we feel. It's worried about who he is, because he is, as he said, I am. So before we can get into who he actually is, let's talk about how everyone else views him, because if we don't know how they view him, we can't compare and contrast. So how the world views God. Let's see what you think, Storm. I think the world has this viewpoint of God from the Christian perspective as this, from someone who is not a Christian looking in, is kind of like judgmental and just like angry all the time.
I would definitely agree with you on that. I mean, a lot of times they hear about the wrath of God. They don't necessarily hear about the love of God.
Yes.
We'll get into that later. But, yeah, it's very judgmental. Either you follow me or you die in hell.
Well, that's not wrong. But
it's not the whole picture.
Yes, it's not the whole picture. Very correct. I think also we have two assets to that, or two sides to that. Number one is that exact one. He is very judgmental, whatever. Or the other side is I like to call it the hippie version. Hey, everything's okay, man. God's okay. Everything's fine. That old song from the 70s, Jesus is still all right with me. Not that Jesus is God, but no, he's all right, man. Not saying that that's their actual way of communicating that, but I think they have this version of God's love being so immersive that there's not even a care for wrong. There's only all good, man. There's no in between. So I think those are kind of the two very big versions of God. Now, we're here sitting across from each other talking, and we're able to do so pretty freely. Now, I want to get into a little bit with the workplace. A lot of people at workplace and just with your family, you go like, we just had Thanksgiving. Hope you all had a good Thanksgiving, safe, and ate a lot of turkey. So we have this with family. You can't even talk to your family like, well, we don't want to cause any issues. Like, I don't want to, upset them. Like, well, you're just talking about God. Why is this coming to the point of such contention that you can't even have a conversation? I think that goes back into with the idea that we self-censor ourselves because we're afraid of what people think. We're afraid of how we talk. When you post on Facebook, when you post on Twitter, whatever, a lot of times, unless you're just want to go off on Twitter and not care, you look and say, okay, how are people going to view and perceive this? And you put tons of thought into it, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but sometimes you also then water down the picture of who God is. So when we talk about who God is, we have to remember we have to speak in truth. And that truth is not going to be something that we're going to have everyone want to give you a high five or a pat on the back. Because, Storm, tell me, how many times have you ever told somebody something that wasn't comfortable, but it was true?
Quite a few times.
And how happy were they about that?
It ranged a little bit.
There's slight variations, sometimes they hated me, other times, they were fine with it.
Sometimes they just hit me, sometimes they shot me in the face. I mean,
and
maybe
look
not
at the
that.
Lord has resurrected him. He is back. Hallelujah. Anyway, no, but yeah, it's that uncomfortableness that is. We got to actually get comfortable with being uncomfortable, because Jesus wasn't a comfortable person. His truth was not something that everyone was all cool with. Why? Well, they killed him. So, there's that. So we even get to that point, though, in churches. We get into, that goes back to the two extremes that we talked about. You have the God is just pure wrath, and you get onto the ridiculousness of like the certain churches that just out there just hating everything, and no matter what, there's no redemption, or if there is, it's through works based, which also is this a horrible thing. Your salvation is not works based. Let me repeat: your salvation is a gift. It's not works. And then also you have the other side where everything's okay, which leads with prosperity gospel. So we have to be okay with being honest in the church, being honest with ourselves, and being honest with each other, not allowing ourselves to be censored. And also then you get onto that with we touch back on it a little bit, but how we talked about the other week, the censorship that you have on social media. Sometimes the truth is going to wind up bothering people, and then that will wind up getting you in trouble with the Facebook or YouTube or Twitter gods, and then they strike you down with a band hammer or whatever. But
you can't provoke the social media gods.
Oh, hail. Yeah, no, it still baffles me that you can't, everything you have to be scared of how you can have a conversation. That was it happened recently with a tangent with that. It happened with Joe Rogan. He switched, biggest podcaster there is. He switched over to Spotify, and then they wanted to censor certain episodes because of the content of it. Not that it was trying to be offensive. He was having conversations, and it was talking about legit issues. And they said, no, we're going to remove these. We want to remove these episodes. They were actually having like planned protests and walkouts from the company for it. It's like, you can't even stand the conversation to be there. It has to be there. And that's one thing is this Christians in general, you have to fight for is just the ability to have a conversation. But also when you're doing it, don't be a jerk. Sometimes it's fun, but don't do it. Please don't do it.
Remember, do everything in love.
Yes.
No, we won't. I promised, or I told Sam that we wouldn't. Shoot, I used your name.
No, it's okay.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I always say Sam, aka the Happy Crow, so it's okay.
I wasn't sure.
Yeah.
We'll edit this part out. I did say to Sam earlier, the Happy Crow, that we wouldn't go too far into this topic, so we're gonna continue on and move forward.
Oh, man, it almost looked like he really wanted to have something else to say. But you know what? I'll hold back.
Well, we did go pretty far into that topic earlier, and we've got plenty of material to go through this episode.
But I like that one. Okay, fine.
So,
see what he does? He's mean. All right.
I'm just trying to keep us on schedule here, Sam.
All right. So let's talk about who God truly is. So we talked about some of everything around it. So now let's talk about the actual topic. Who God truly is. First, we're going to talk about John 1:4. In him there was life, and the life was the light of men. So God is light and life. You cannot have life without light in general. Now you can have debates about like on the ocean and all that jazz, but okay, without the sun there wouldn't be heat in the oceans to have all that, so there still is not anything, so you still have that. And the crazy part is that light is his life, and that's nuts. Here's the part where I find amazing. He created us. The Bible says he literally breathed. So we were just a big old sack of meat, just sitting there, doing nothing, just flopping around, and God just goes, boom. Now there's life in us. That's unfathomable in my brain. Like, I can picture it, but it still doesn't make sense because you're just talking and then breathing, and boom, there's life.
I think it's kind of funny how you said flopping around. We were just meat bags just flopping around.
Yeah.
Don't necessarily know if I would agree with just flopping around.
Well, a strong gust of wind came, that you saw an arm go blah, 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 in the wind, whatever. So yeah, it's just insane to think that there's just a meat bag laying there that is perfectly ready to be human, and then boom, now it's actually alive. Now that there's life, that is insanity. And God said, that life, he is life. So God literally put himself in us and said, I want you to live, so I'm going to put myself into you to bring you to me. It was a precursor to what he did with Jesus, and that is awesome.
And that's also part where he made us in his own likeness.
Mm-hmm.
He gave us his life.
Yep. To create us in his own likeness, because he is life. He's alive, therefore we are alive. Crazy thought. Who would have thought of that? And so let's get into another one. And God formed man out of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and he became a living soul. So that was what we were just talking about. That's Genesis 2:7. And so we talked about the meat bag laying there. Now imagine this one. I got a bunch of dust, and then I somehow magically with my powers, because I am not God, go oogly boogly, and boom, there is now, from dust, now there is a meat sack that could be alive.
I don't think it worked the first time. Can you try that again?
Oogly boogly.
There you go. Yep. Now. Yep.
There we go. See?
Now it became a living soul.
There we go. No. It wasn't the living soul until the breath came in.
Correct.
So it's just nuts that there's dust, there's nothing. And I think also God was trying to teach us humility in that, because he knew where we were going to go. He goes, they're also, and later in the Bible says, from dust you came, because we're not anything without him. We're literally dust. There's no
material, particles in the air.
Yes, there's nothing to it. There's no life in dust. Like, you can't like put a bunch of dust together and have nothing else but that dust, like dry dust, and then somehow some microorganisms are living it. No, it's dust. There's nothing that's going to grow out of that. You're not going to have these like amoebas crawling. No. There's nothing. It's dust. And God said, you know what? This is what I'm going to make people out of. Because I want you to know that I made you. And it's not that you're worth something because of anything that you did or anything special. No. You're nothing, but I made you something. That's pretty cool.
And I think you'll find throughout the entire Bible, everything that God does is to point towards back to him.
Always. It's always trying to come back to him.
Everything he does, it points back to him.
It's such subtle things and large things. Like, it's large for us, but we don't think of it, so that's why it's subtle. Just the fact that he said, I'm giving my life to you. He repeated that process when Jesus died and said, now I'm letting you come back to me. Everything is about coming back every single time, and that's awesome. So, second part, so number 1, God is light and God is life. So number 2, God is love. So, not the world's all-accepting love, but actual love. So let's get into that, what the actual love is. First, I want to read 1 John 4, 7, and 8. Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves God has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love. Okay, so it's a pretty straightforward, God's love. Cool. So what does that mean? 1 Corinthians 13, 4 through 7. Number 1, love is patient. Okay. What does that mean? As a parent of 2 great boys who test my patience all the time, patience is one that you have to really work on. It has a lot of personal work you got to put into it. But he just is that. Love is patience. He just is patient. There's no work. There's no effort to it. He's patient with you. To me, that's nuts. And that ties in with the second part, love is kind. Because when you get impatient, you don't get so kind. As a parent, I fail when I get impatient because my kids are annoying me and I don't want to strangle them in love, of course. Strangle them with hugs. I'm kidding.
Daddy, when are we there? Are we there yet? Are we there yet?
I swear I'm going to pull this car over. That has never happened. Yes, it has. Anyway, but So when you lose your patience, you kind of lose the kindness. It does not envy and it doesn't boast. The envy, that's natural for humans. If you Storm, you're married.
Mm-hmm.
A guy comes around. If you see a guy hitting on your wife, you're gonna get envious because it's just natural.
Very natural, yes.
And also, you're gonna get angry. You might hit him. Who knows?
Which I want to kind of tag on this, the envious part. So God is not envious. Why? Because he is completely complete
Secure.
and secure.
Yep.
Nothing needs to be added or taken away. So he has nothing to be envious about because he is fully complete and secure.
Yes. The only thing the Bible does say that he is quote unquote envious of is not in a way that we're thinking of the envious of angry. He is envious for our love. Meaning what the Bible is actually saying, if you break down the translation, he's saying he desires our love. So when we give love to somebody else, he's like, that's for me. Come on, come back over. He wants you back. That goes back to him. But yes, the envious that we're talking about is that like jealousy, anger, and all that. That's not God at all. So it does not boast. For you guys listening, how many of you know somebody who has a little bit of pride? Just a little bit. When I say a little bit, I'm talking
Guilty.
a lot.
Guilty as charged. I will admit to it. I can be prideful at times.
You know what's funny about this? Okay, I'm gonna blow them up a little bit here.
Go for it.
So when we were testing out the program for the audio and video, and I was trying to get it to sync up in the very beginning, it would not work. Called him up, talked to him about it. And he's like, "Well, I'm not gonna say I told you so, but I told you so." And I said, "Well, yeah, you go ahead, keep bragging." He's like, "Well, I don't want to be wrong I don't want to be right all the time." I was like, "Okay, tooting your own horn over there."
You know, being right all the time is pretty boring because you always know what's happening.
Such a burden on your shoulders.
It is such a burden.
This is just so heavy. Could you maybe help me a little bit? Okay. No, but like not only that, but you have the pride. You don't even have to have pride just in like that those very blatantly obvious ridiculous things. But think of pride in this way too. When you see somebody on the street, let's say you see somebody tweaking out. I've seen plenty of druggies. Probably using the wrong term for that, but I've seen people who are drugged out, and I'm not using that term in a judgmental way. I'm just saying they're drugged out, and that's what it is. If you look at them and be like, oh, they're making terrible decisions, and you have this judgmental attitude and this like looking down on attitude, that's judgment. That's pride on your end. If you can't put that pride away, then how are you going to actually love this person? It's like, well, that's for the shelter kid. No, guess what? God said one of the things besides love that is mentioned so much in the Bible is helping the poor. So that somebody who what does Jesus say? Blessed are the poor in spirit. So that's a type of poor. Just want to remind you. So helping people out emotionally is also part of helping the poor. Just letting not only monetary but emotionally. So there's the prideful. It doesn't dishonor others. This one I'm guilty of. I can have the habit if someone is very wrong and they have insulted myself, or especially if it's somebody that I know, if I feel that somebody is being attacked and it is unfair, I will jump to that person's defense and I will do whatever I can to help. And a lot of times I can get a little nasty and tear somebody else down in the process instead of just pushing the other person up. So that's dishonoring others. And that's something everyone can, I'm pretty sure, relate to. When you get angry, whatever, you say something that's not honoring to that person. So that's one of mine. Is not self-seeking. That one's pretty, everyone has that in them. That's pretty obvious. It's not easily angered. Guilty. Okay, let's move forward because there's some conviction right there.
It keeps no records of wrong.
Oh,
that's
man.
hard. I mean, I think that's hard for any human being.
For me, if someone wronged me, I can hold on to it, but if I can see that the person's heart has changed, I will instantly let go. Problem is, I should be letting go before that point, because guess what? Not all the time their hearts are going to change.
It's very true.
And it's not my place to hold on to it.
I'm a little particular in how I do certain things.
No,
My wife.
you?
Yes, me.
What?
Little on the OCD side.
No.
Just a little. I wouldn't say I'm.
You tapped the doorknob 3 times before coming upstairs. I'm kidding.
That's not true. But I also notice very small details. And sometimes it's hard for me to let things go after I told someone to do it this way 5 different times. And sometimes I told you 5 different times to do it this certain way, and yet you're still doing it the opposite way.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's when you hold on to things here and there, it's so hard. And it all depends on, more or less, it comes down to our pride. Because how personal it is to us kind of determines how much we hold on to it. As if we feel more personally attacked or connected to whatever that is, then that's the amount of effort we're going to hold on to that thing. So that ties back in with pride, which is kind of nuts. I actually just made that connection as we were talking, so that's interesting. My brain's pondering over that right now. All right, so love, now verse 6, love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with truth. So that one's pretty easy, I think. Does not delight in evil, but rejoices in truth. The only thing that times that can be misconstrued, I guess you can say, is sometimes when you see someone who deserves something in our eyes, our perspective, deserves something bad, and they get it, we're like, yeah, good, and they finally got what they deserve. That's not our place. That's not for us to worry about. That's for God to worry about. But so we're kind of delighting in that. Nah, it ain't so good. So it always protects, always trusts, always hopes, and always perseveres. Those are very self-explanatory. Trust, though, is one of those things that it's hard to do right, because sometimes people overly distrust everyone, and no, God says to guard your heart. But when you trust God, that's very simple. You just give it all over. For trusting each other, that's where you have to use godly wisdom.
But it's also easier said than done.
Oh, yeah.
Giving everything over to God.
Yes.
That's something that we have to do daily.
Yes, very true.
Hourly, almost to the minute.
Easy to say, not easy to do. You're correct, yeah.
Very easy to say.
Yeah.
A lot harder to put that in practice. And maybe we'll do a subtopic on that later on.
That does seem like a good
still
one.
got
Trust.
plenty of material to cover for tonight. But yeah, always trusts. Ooh,
Yeah. Here's for me, with trusting other people, I have criteria in my brain of how I trust people and say, okay, this person is now worthy of, which I don't know if that's necessarily good, bad, whatever, because maybe I should be a little more in that aspect, because I am very guarded with certain things. This guy over here has known me for a while now. I can be very guarded or I can be very open. It all depends on my level of trust.
This is very true, and even though he trusts me quite often, I sometimes have to get a text message from his wife.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That he needs some help because he's too prideful or too stubborn to ask for help.
What you're talking about? There's
You
none of
know
this that
exactly.
has happened. I am not looking at you because I am just going to know the truth in my heart. Okay, he's right. Anyways.
But, I mean, it's human. I mean, this is, for the most part, always it goes against our human nature to do all of this.
Every part of love goes against human nature, because human nature says protect yourself, do everything for yourself, trust no one, and which is kind of what is taught in general public, because you're not supposed to trust.
It's all about me.
Yeah.
I got my iPhone.
what's the number one thing I've always heard from people? Look out for number one. Look
Yeah.
out for yourself. That's the opposite of love. Love
Mm-hmm.
is a very giving thing.
So that's self-seeking.
You do guard your heart, but you're not always watching out for number one. You're saying, I'm putting myself second. I still want to make sure that I'm good, but I'm putting myself second. I'm putting others first.
Not to mention, I know we talked about this in one of the previous weeks. A yielded life yields life.
Yes.
Can't stress that
enough. That goes back to trust, yielding to God. Yeah, I think we're going to wind up doing a whole series, a whole episode on that, definitely.
It's probably a good one. Probably not for a little while, but we'll definitely add that to the list of topics.
Yes. All right, so Storm, take away this next one.
God is infinite.
Dun, dun, dun. Infinite.
He is infinite. It's hard for us, a human, to comprehend and to understand God's infinitude.
The word infinite in general is not a word that the human brain can actually put into concept. You can understand the idea of it, but you think of a can of soda, you in your brain, you picture a can of soda. Picture infinite. There's no end. You have this picture in your brain of, let's say, the Millennium Falcon going through, like the stars, and you see all the stars whooshing past. But guess what? Your field of vision ends at some point. So wherever your field of vision ends, there ends your infinite, because that's all you can physically see. You can't go beyond your own limitations. You can't picture infinite. It's not possible. So that's a crazy concept that we can't even wrap our brains around.
And God has no limitations. Because to put a limit means it's finite, and to make him finite, which also kind of brings us back to almost the beginning of this, where we can't put God in a box. That's us putting God in some box, saying, oh, this is how I think God is, how the world puts God in a box. Mm-hmm. We put God in a box. We think what God is, but truly he just is himself, But I want to kind of bring that back to the first part.
Yeah. Whenever we want to put it, as I said, throw away your ideas of what God is, because your ideas and who he is are two different things. He just is. And we have to stop trying to think of, well, God's kind of like, no, God just is, and look at what he said through the Bible and just be in awe of it. That goes back to last week. Be in just awe of who he is, and then it kind of makes a lot of the other things, like trusting him. Once you can't wrap your brain around it, but once you really mull over the thought of infinite and all that, you're like, and that magnitude loves me. That kind of makes it a little easier to trust, because it's something that's like so large. And like for me, I knew my wife for a little while before we actually started dating. I can literally remember the exact moment when I was like, okay, I need to start thinking about this person differently. Was the moment when she said that she was on the bus at school, because we met in high school. And she's like, I saw you today because we weren't talking for a little while. And she's like, I saw you today. It was real nice. It's nice to see you. And it just made me happy. And this is after not talking for like 2-3 weeks. And I was like, she actually is thinking about, like, any other time. No one ever would have like been like, hey, yeah, it was really good to see you. Like, any other relationships I had were not that like that. That was very different for me. And so I was like, okay. So she actually puts time and thought into it. It seems so minuscule, but if I know who the person is, I know how the thought process works. I'm like, that means something. So what, I did was I said, okay, I knew that she cared about me. So I want to test and see where she is. Like, okay, does she love me? Like, does she care? And I started testing, and the rest is history. But you have that person, that God who's just there, and he loves you. now you can start trusting a little bit easier.
I'm going to read a verse, Psalm 139, 7 through 12. This is from the New International Version. Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee from your presence? If I go up to the heavens, you are there. If I make my bed in the depths, you are there. If I rise on the wings of the dawn, if I settle on the far side of the sea, even there your hand will guide me.
Say far side of the sea 3 times fast. Go.
No. Your right hand will hold me fast. If I say, surely the darkness will hide me, and the light become night around me, even the darkness will not be dark to you. The night will shine like the day, for darkness is as light to you.
Where can I go from your spirit? Where can I flee? You can't escape God. Now this is going to be one of the hard truths. No matter what you try to think, what you do in the dark, whatever, it's going to be exposed in light. And guess what? God is light. You can't get away from him. Period.
He's everywhere.
But that's also, you have that, he knows who you are. He knows your deepest, darkest secrets. He knows that, as we talked about last week, humans, we all suck. He knows this already, but he still loves you. That should be encouraging to know that someone knows you're bare. There's nothing to be hidden, and he still loves you.
And there's no way to escape his love. There is no limits to his presence, nor there are pockets where he is absent. You cannot escape him and his love.
Oh, that's what we do it. Let's talk about how we do that. We try to escape. We love running from God. I think the modern world is built to that. We have everything is to immerse yourself, to get rid of reality, and to try to just pretend like things don't exist.
Virtual reality.
Ready Player One. Let's do it.
Augmented reality.
I want to see. I really hope that actually happens. That'd be so cool to have like a Ready Player One type deal. Except it'd also be really scary at the same time, knowing the implications of it. But
not that far off from the technology.
To get that deep into it,
we're getting close to it.
We got a little bit yet.
I think we'll see it in our lifetime.
We'll make a bet on that one. I think we're probably like close to 100 years out from that close of virtualness.
No.
All right, you guys heard. So if it happens, he gets to pull his toot pride hoarding again. All right.
What can I say? I'm always right.
Oh yeah. But so we try to flee from God, and I think this is something I think why music is very important. Because I'm throwing Storm off over here. I can see him like, wait, where are you going? Where are you going? Listen. So when you go to church and you know it's church music, quote unquote, from like a contemporary style, because you're like, oh, this sounds like church music because it makes you feel a certain way, and you know where it's going with it just because the tone of it, everything of that. You hear just different styles of music. You make you feel one way or the other. That's just music, vibrations, how the body and the mind react to it. There's plenty of science on that, but I think there's the cultural aspect of this is, look at one of my personal things that I can't stand is modern trap rap, or the what is that one style called? The laziest style in the world. Mumble rap. There we go. Not only just the style, I can't stand the style in general, but that's just my personal preference. But I think that if you listen to the lyrical end of it, it's very nihilistic and they don't care about anything. And it's just like, and then whenever something, they can talk about some like real dark subjects in this like lighthearted way. And I think we're trying to escape the world. And I think that we've gotten to this point that no one wants to deal with anything. So this is the only way that you can deal with it. And I think that that's why music has a big part. And so also that's for audience, guard your heart with music you listen to. I don't always have all the best stuff because I have Christian, non-Christian. I have all kinds of stuff. So I'm not telling you to go one way or the other. That's for you and God to decide. That's not my job. I just tell you if I like it or not like it. But I'm not going to tell you what to do with that. That's your thing. But I definitely think that nihilistic attitude is very indicative of running away from God, because we don't want to feel, we don't want to have responsibility, we don't want to have that emotion. It's just, we're just going to be here, and that's what it is. No, you got a purpose. And I think that's the last thing we'll talk about is the purpose. Who is God? He's someone who created us. He's light, he is love, he's infinite, and he's someone who created us with a purpose for something to do in this world. Whether that something is you are making a podcast, whether that something is you are working as a lunch lady, whether it or a lunch dude, whether you are a janitor, whatever it is, you have a purpose. And guess what? Your purpose might not necessarily be that job. It might not be, my job might not be any of these jobs. Your purpose is to serve him, and he's going to love you. He made you because he loves you. His love for you is not going to just go up, down, left, or right just by your actions or deeds. He just loves you. He is love. So your purpose does not lie in what you do. Your purpose lies in who he is. So if you understand that, you can walk with a little bit more confidence and a little bit more with your head up high.
Not to backtrack a little bit, but one other thing I did want to talk about with God is infinite.
Mm-hmm.
If you ever get a chance to watch on YouTube How Great Is Our God by Louis Giglio, it's like a 40-minute episode or YouTube. It really just shows you how small we are in this universe.
How insignificant little ants we are.
So small. So small. In this huge universe. How many times did I say?
I think it was 9.
We'll have to double check. But anyway, really would highly recommend How Great Is Our God by Louis Giglio. You can find it on YouTube. Take the time, watch it, 40 minutes to truly understand how big is our God and how complete is our God.
How great is our God. I don't worry, I won't sing anymore.
Please.
I had the voice of an angel. Too bad it was fallen.
Please.
Don't torture them. We don't have many viewers.
And that's how we only have one viewer, your mom.
She loves me. She told me she loves me. All right. So to wrap it up, once again, God is life. God is light. God is love. And he's infinite. And he loves you. And because of him, you have a purpose. Doesn't matter what your thoughts on it are. If you said, no, I don't, you're wrong. He made you. You have a purpose. Everything is worth living for because you have a purpose. All right, so just want to tell you guys, be good. Spend time with your family. Love people around you. Learn who God is, and then you get to know yourself a little bit more too because he created you. Take care. Talk to you guys next week.
See ya.